Oh, you got something.
Do I? Hello, hello?
You do. Hold on. You got it? Okay. How about me?
Yep, you're on.
I'm on?
Hello, hello?
Okay. Hey! Everyone have a seat if you want to take a seat. If you want to stand, please stand. This is the discussion portion of the evening, where my name's Jason Jones from Rhino Records. This is the fucking legend, Peter Jesperson. Stand. I'm going to stand because I've been sitting all day.
Okay.
I may sit later, but we are here today to talk about a very important record that came out many moon ago. 1984's classic replacements record, Let It Be, who was produced by Peter. So give him co-produced by Peter. So please give him a round of applause. And I kind of want to start by just saying, who here is a musician? Yeah? Okay. Who here is on an independent label? Shit's tough, man. Who has, like, you know, your own distribution of your records and all that kind of stuff? Yeah? Okay. A couple of y'all. So let's take a step back out of the modern music landscape, and maybe let's go back to 1984, where it wasn't like this. Peter, can you give us an insight into the state of Twin Tone, the label that you were so important as a part of, and what was the business like back in 1984?
Well, I think, you know, the record store was really kind of where I cut my teeth between 73 and 83.
Yeah.
And so by 83, I had actually left the store in June of 83 because I was traveling too much. The replacements were really touring an awful lot, and I also picked up a side gig doing some road managing for REM in the summer of 83. So that just sort of made it untenable for me to try to hang on to the record store job. I mean, as long as it was only the replacements and I was traveling with them, I could kind of come in and out of town and people would cover my shifts if need be. I managed the store, but I had other people taking care of stuff while I was away.
Sure.
But once I was on the road, you know, that much, I actually left there. So the scene at the time, I suppose, was, you know, the indie labels had become really established by that time. You know, I was lucky to be around in, like I said, the early 70s when they first started springing up. So,
Yeah.
And I think the indie labels were giving the majors a run for their money. And
I would wholeheartedly agree as a major label employee that y'all were kicking ass, man. Y'all were totally kicking ass.
yeah, so we started our label in 77 and incorporated in 78, put our first records out in the spring of 78, and over the next 20 years, we made about 300 records.
That's wild. Which this is one of many replacements records in the Twin Tone catalog. I will say that, you know, this deluxe edition that Peter and I had the pleasure and honor of working on together is not just a love letter to the band, but also a love letter to this album and also to Twin Tone as a label, since it was the final album that they recorded for Twin Tone. Can you kind of talk about what the recording environment was for Let It Be? Because Hootenanny was recorded in a warehouse?
Well, Hootenanny was recorded on a 24-track mobile unit that my partner in the label, Paul Stark, had put together, and he was doing all kinds of other recording things that actually made money for him, and doing things with like the Minnesota Symphony and doing live recordings and things like that with the mobile unit. So he had it parked in a warehouse in North Minneapolis, and there were two spaces actually. One where he parked the mobile unit, and then a practice space for a band called the Suburbs, who were the biggest band on the label at the time.
Suburbs are a fucking incredible band.
Great
If
band.
y'all have not listened to the Suburbs, please listen to the Suburbs.
They've got a new live album coming out, I think, in the next couple of months, from back in a vintage '82. But anyway, it's great
Oh,
stuff.
really?
You've gotten to hear it, yeah, very
Cool.
good.
That's great.
But we went in to make a record with Paul Stark in this warehouse, and we used the Suburbs rehearsal space. But we'd done the first two records at a home studio that Paul Stark had actually built in the early '70s. He called it P. David Studios. When we took it over, it became Blackberry Way,
Yeah.
named after a
After the move.
great record by The Move, yeah. And so we did the first two records, Sorry Ma and Stink there, and then decided to take a break and do Hootenanny with Paul Stark in the warehouse, and then we came back to Blackberry Way for Let It Be. So there was a really cool feeling to return to Blackberry Way and to return to Steve Felstead as an engineer who had been so great on those first two records. He was, the Replacements were, not the easiest people to work with in some ways, and he was so even-tempered and put up with all their shit, and he was a great guy. So anyway, it was a great environment, and of course by that time, Paul just had a back pocket full of the best songs he'd ever written. So it was a very exciting time.
So let's talk about the songs themselves. And you have such a close relationship with Paul in relationship to him dropping off demos at your apartment. And how were the songs that ultimately informed Let It Be? How did you hear them? Did he still drop off demos? Did you hear them in a live setting, or how were they deployed, if you will?
All of the above. I mean, a lot of them he would give me on cassette. A lot of times he'd write late at night, and he'd drop them off after midnight. I've got something new. It's a little edgy. If I don't get it out of the house, I'm going to erase it. So, he would drop them off. A lot of times I'd hear him at band practice, or I'd hear him at live shows.
Yeah.
And by the time, I guess, I'm trying to think of what the first song. Well, the first song I would have heard from what became Let It Be was "I Will Dare," and that one I actually remember him calling me at the office, and we had just sent the master's artwork and master audio of Hootenanny off to the pressing plant, and he called up and said, "I've just written the best song I've ever written, and we need to add it to the album."
Can we add it to Hootenanny?
Yeah. It's just that ship has sailed, Paul. I'm really sorry. It would have cost a fortune to stop that train and try to, and plus it would have delayed things for another few months. And that was he was not a patient man, so we needed that record done to have something to tour on.
Yeah. How long were the actual recording sessions? Was it bits and bobs in between touring, or was it
For Let It Be, you mean?
Yeah, for Let It Be. Yeah.
Let It Be was actually started at the end of August of '83, and so we recorded a lot in September, August, and a little bit in September. But then we were on the road September and October. Got back in October and November.
Was that the X tour, or was
Well,
that?
we did a bunch of dates with X that
Okay.
fall. Yeah. So we were in and out of town a bunch. So it's hard to say how many days it took, and also there was no a lot of because Paul Stark owned the house where the studio was. We would record, and the money would go against the rent that the engineers, owed Paul. And
Oh, yeah.
So it was a little difficult to keep track of how much money we were spending. But I think we probably would have spent something in the neighborhood of 25 to 30 days in the studio on that one.
Okay, awesome.
And then mixing.
So from the batch of material, whenever you were hearing, I Will Dare, and Paul calling you up and being like, "This is the best song I've ever recorded or written," what songs from Let It Be stood out to you the most?
Well, I think I Will Dare. He had called me to tell me he'd written this song, and then of course I didn't hear it right away. We didn't record it right away, and it was maybe a week or two later. Oft-told story here. I feel like I've told it a million times, but anyway, I was at a show. They were playing a place called Goofy's Upper Deck, which was a hardcore punk place that they didn't really fit in with, but we ended up playing there quite a bit anyway. And And I remember them doing a show there, and you know, half a dozen songs into the set, all of a sudden there was this kind of poppy, strummy intro that I hadn't heard, and I thought, oh, this sounds like something new. And then as soon as they went into it, it was just so damn catchy, and I just, the light bulb went off over my head, and I said, this is the song Paul called me about, and I just thought, we're going to be rich. He's written this, he's written the song. So that was really the first one. I think other than that, that first couple days in the studio would have been I Will Dare was probably the first thing we recorded, actually, and then Favorite Thing, We're Coming Out.
It was pretty much recorded in sequence.
Well,
those, as much as I remember from the tracking sheets, it was like a little batch, then some covers.
Yep.
Then a little batch.
That's
then
exactly
some covers. Right. You know.
Yeah. And then like things like 16 Blue. We actually, I remember getting into Boston on a tour, and Paul, we had a day off, and he actually said, "Hey, can you find us someplace to rehearse?" And I thought, well, this is very bizarre.
Okay.
I didn't get that request very often. And so I talked to our friends in the Del Fuegos, and they said,
Del Fuegos, great band.
We could use their space, and so they went to practice, and then the next night we were doing the Paradise opening for REM, and during sound check I heard a new song, and I thought, well, this is why they wanted to rehearse, and it was a song called 16 Blue. So that was the first time they ever played it. First time I ever heard it was sound check. First time they ever played it live for an audience was that night. Yeah.
Amazing.
So yeah, on and on. I mean, there's all those songs just kind of poured out.
So the actual recording sessions, like, can you describe what the environment was at Blackberry Way for everyone?
Blackberry Way was you know, it was a house, 606 13th Avenue Southeast. It was in a little neighborhood called Dinkytown, which is adjacent to the University of Minnesota.
Everyone get on Google Maps real quick and look that up real quick.
Anybody who knows Bob Dylan would know the name Dinkytown. He lived there for a while in the early 60s, before he moved to, late 50s, early 60s, before he moved to New York. Great little area there. And it was just like, you know, you walked in the door, and there was a kind of a lobby area. To the right was the kitchen. In the back was what had been a bedroom. That was the control room. There was a bathroom here, and then the studio was here. So we couldn't, from the control room, we couldn't see the band.
Yeah.
You know, from the control room, which I think in the Replacements case, especially, you know, they didn't feel like they were being watched.
Yeah.
And I think that they that made them a little freer than if we'd all been kind of staring at them while they were trying to do stuff.
Yeah.
So that was really cool, and it was, you know, like, you know, downstairs was the workshop and the Echo Plate. Upstairs, all three of the engineers lived upstairs, and they were high school buddies of mine, and so that was pretty cool. Very homey atmosphere, and it just, yeah, I mean, it was very comfortable, homey, and
sounds like Big Pink, like Big Pink version of
I guess very much,
yeah,
very very Big Pink.
Yeah. So it's recorded, and then you have to wait. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, that was, you know, this was the days of, I mean, when you're talking about going back and things that, you know, if you weren't around at the time, you wouldn't maybe be aware of this, but at the time, college radio was everything. If you put out a record in June, it was dead in the water.
Yeah.
You had nobody to play it, and so we finished the record. We were wrapping it up in like April and May. And then there was cover art to deal with, and we messed around with that for a while. And you know, Paul, what's going to be the album title and all this, and so when we really had it ready to go, it was probably early June, and we had dates on the book, and suddenly it was just like one of those things where we've got to hold it until August when the college radio kicks back in. And that ended up canceling a bunch of dates. I mean, we did some things in the area. We would go down to Chicago and play, you know, do a Chicago, Madison, Milwaukee run or something like that. But that was really a tough time because actually we had a great booking agent by that time, a guy named Frank Riley, who's kind of a legend in the business now, one of the best booking agencies, I think, of all time, in the rock business anyway. He's still got a venture, High Road touring based in Sausalito. But Frank was booking them, and I had to call Frank and tell him to cancel, you know, like 6 weeks of dates or something, and he was not happy about that. But it paid off because waiting until August and we did the I Will Dare 12-inch first with 20th Century Boy by T-Rex on the flip and Hank Williams, live version of Hank Williams, Hey Good Looking.
Fantastic 12-inch.
And that got a lot of attention, and then we put the album out in early October, and by the time we were on the road, you could just feel it right away. I mean, the crowds were bigger, the money was better.
And also it's just the critical acclaim of that being timed where it was just overflowing at that time.
Yep.
It was fantastic.
Yeah, and it was interesting too because I think that Paul had a breakthrough of some kind in his songwriting, and so suddenly he was going from writing things like Heyday or You Lose or those songs from Hootenanny, which I think are great songs, but suddenly you're getting Unsatisfied and
something
Answering
rich
Machine.
and textured.
Yeah, it was pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question about the rumor about how the album title came about? Is it for real?
Yeah, well, yeah, they were. I think that one. There, most of the time, I think every record had about 20 titles before the final one.
Oh yeah.
But that one, I don't remember any titles being tossed around. And at one point, Paul, I think they were maybe sitting at the CC Club, which was the bar we all hung out at, kitty corner from the record store, in the neighborhood everybody lived in there in South Minneapolis. And I think Paul actually said, okay, the next song that comes on the jukebox is going to be the album title, and lo and behold.
Let It Be,
man. It was Let It Be. And it was also a good way to give me, to razz me a little bit, because he always said I was too big a Beatle fan. So it's a little bit of
That's hilarious.
rubbing my nose in it.
So, okay, post-release, what was it like? Like, post-release of Let It Be, bands on tour, I mean, you're there with them, like, did everyone feel the energy around the response to it?
Oh yeah, it was, I mean, the energy really started as the album came together, and everybody from, Steve Felstead, the engineer, to my partner Paul Stark and Charlie Hallman. I had two partners at the time. There were three of us that started the label. And everybody that was on that inner circle, you could just feel it. I mean, there was just something about those songs and the way that record came together. So by the time we hit the road, the other thing about Let It Be is, they've done probably, I think I was tallying dates when I was writing something a while back, and there were about 52 or 53 dates in very close proximity prior to the time that we went
That's wild, dude.
to start the record. So, and the other thing that's interesting about Let It Be is I think there were 6 of the songs that they were doing for almost a year before the album came out. So by the time they recorded them, it went really fast.
Yeah.
They just had it down, and they were incredibly tight at that time. And people make fun of, or not make fun, but the stories you hear are about them falling down drunk and being loose, but this was, man, they were super tight at that time.
Well, it's a good transition to discussing the Deluxe edition that Peter and I had the honor and pleasure of producing together for Rhino. It comes out on Friday. If you haven't pre-ordered a copy, please do so. On many formats. There's a show on there.
There is a show
from Cubby Bear, which is a very, very tight, great. Oh yeah, Chicago. Is Chicago in the house? Right on. Hell yeah. Big ups to Chicago. That's a very tight show, and it's a complete opposite of the shit hits the pants.
Yeah, it is. And I think, I was saying to somebody the other day that, a lot of people were really excited about the Live at Maxwell's, which I was too. But I don't think that the Live at Maxwell's has quite the essence of the Replacements that this Cubby Bear show does. I think,
We're going to get into some weird territory here, because I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think that Maxwell's it's a little bit stunted.
Yep.
If you will.
Maxwell's was a weird thing. I mean, for one thing, it was done at Maxwell's in Hoboken, and that was one of our favorite places where we felt really comfortable. But it was at that time, I think, that Bob had maybe one foot out the door, or there was just something about that. And it's a great recording. There was again a mobile unit that recorded it, so it's hi-fi. The Cubby Bear Show is an audience recording that we cleaned up as best we could. We had a fantastic mastering engineer in Madison, Wisconsin by the name of Justin Perkins. If you're looking for a mastering guy, you can't beat him.
This dude is legit. Very, very good.
He's a genius of some kind.
Yeah.
So he cleaned that one up. And so, you know, the audio is not super hi-fi, but I think what brought me back to it time and time again was just the song selection is amazing, 28 songs. They opened with a new one called Can't Hardly Wait. But the song selection and the performance, to me, it's just off the hook.
Well, and there's not a lot of nonsense. It's just straight through, and it's not one of the sets where they're antagonistic. It's a very straightforward. They're doing the NRBQ. We're gonna pass the hat and play whatever you put in there, but also they're honoring their own repertoire of song.
They are. They had a few cocktails that night, but I mean, I think that it was not.
But not to their detriment.
Not to their detriment. That's the good way of putting it.
Yeah. So, Peter and I talked about this deluxe edition. How many years ago? 2 years ago?
2.
Yeah. It took a long time to get it over the line for a myriad of reasons. The most important one being a moment to just pause, because we've been cranking out a lot of deluxe editions from the band for many years in succession, and this is something where, you know, Let It Beat, similar to the Tim box. Who has the Tim Let It Bleed edition? Right on, thank you. Great collection. Basically, we wanted to give it a moment to breathe, because it was, you know, we've been asking a lot of the fan base for a very short amount of time, and Let It Be was something that we wanted to get right, to make sure that we were doing the due diligence, to make sure that we were going through all tapes possible and trying to put together something that was at the same level as what and precedent as what we had set for some of the previous deluxe editions, which the Sorry Ma box, which Peter was extremely impactful on that box. I mean, he's been impactful for every single box, if I'm going to be honest. But, you know, we had set a high precedent, and it took, we needed to give it time in order to gestate and go through everything. For the new deluxe edition, there's a disc of rarities. There's the live show that we've already discussed. From the rarities set, what would you say is your favorite cut? If you had to pick one, you can pick 2 if you want.
Well, I think Androgynous is probably the most exciting one on the whole box set of the unreleased things, and that was to me a surprise, because I had forgotten that there was an extra vocal on that master tape.
Yeah.
And you know, we had done a series of reissues for Rhino in 2008, all on CD, all 8 of the albums. But at that time, we didn't have the budget that allowed us to go back to the multi-tracks and actually pull performances that had not been mixed off those reels. So on this one, we had a bigger budget, and we were able to do that. And I think, you know, to Rhino's credit, I really, really appreciate that. We took I have the 2-inch reels stored at my place, and I took them to Round and Wound in Burbank, and they transferred them all to digital.
The great Brian Kehoe,
and Darren Edwards.
And Darren, who's an amazing engineers.
Tremendous people. So that allowed us to really go through and listen to all of the, you know, warts and all tracks that they'd recorded. And I think Jason actually heard the vocal on Androgynous first and pointed it out to me, and I thought that there had only been one. That was such an odd song that I didn't think Paul had taken a lot of passes at it. And we found this other vocal that I think is really gripping. It's clearly not a master vocal, and we definitely picked the right one for the original album. But to me, that's the best of the rarities on this new box.
I agree with you, and I want to do a big ups to Peter's wife Jennifer for advocating for us including that vocal as a part of it, because without your advocation,
you're very welcome.
You did the Lord's work. So But yeah, no, it was. I agree with you. The alternate version of Androgynous. Has everyone heard that?
No.
You should go check it out. It's streaming right now. You can go listen to it, or you can wait until Friday and pick up your copy of the deluxe edition of Let It Be via Rhino Records, and you can go listen to it on whatever format you want. But yeah, I think that I'm in complete agreement with you that that alternate version of Androgynous is stellar.
But there's some good mixes. I think that the Perfectly Lethal
Very good.
is a really interesting thing that we put the two takes together.
Yep.
And
Well, no, that's Street Girl.
oh, Street Girl. Sorry, you're right.
Yes.
That Street Girl is a cool one too, and that had never come out before.
Yeah.
So that was cool, and yeah. So I think that we found another home demo of Westerberg's. He used to give me these things, these late night deliveries, and we unearthed another demo of Answering Machine that was just different enough that we added that to the package too. I think that's a real.
It's really good. It's really, really good.
And I think it's also again, to bring up Justin Perkins again, he remastered the album, and I personally think it's the best that Let It Be has ever sounded. I really think he's brought out all of the things that needed to be brought out, and
I would agree with you.
it really kicks ass in a cool way from the moment you drop the
Sure does.
the tone arm on it.
We are going to listen to some of that here in a second. What we're going to listen to this evening, I'm not going to give the whole kit and caboodle away. I'm going to play one side of the Rarities disc, and then I think we're going to listen to the City Gardens
Oh, fantastic.
show. Can you talk about the City Garden show for a second?
That was another one early on when we were developing just sort of the shape of this record. Got the previous sets, it was usually 4 CDs and one piece of vinyl. In this case, we've done a 4 LP set and a 3 CD set, both of them.
Tight set.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I said, and then when we were trying to decide what other little extras we could put into it, I have a tape that I really treasured that I had kept sort of in a special place for all these years of a show that we'd done in Trenton, New Jersey, at a place called City Gardens, and it was a
Legendary venue.
legendary venue in a really, really bad part of town, and but it had one of the best PAs in the Northwest, so I think the band always played well there. They sounded well, they could hear the monitors, and so they were doing a show there, and it happened to be on my birthday, and I remember being in the dressing room, and Paul said, all right, it's your birthday, what do you want to hear? And I without missing a beat, I said, You're Getting Married, which was a solo song of his that the band never really cottoned to, and although they attempted it, we tried to record it for Hootenanny, and Bob kind of played shitty guitar, and afterwards said, "Save that for your solo album, Paul. That ain't the Replacements." But it was, they did a lot of ballads. I mean, why not? Come on, Bob. But anyway, anyway, I asked about You're Getting Married, and he rolled his eyes, and I thought, well, that's never going to happen. And then as the club started filling up, and I saw there was about 8 or 10 stone cold punk rock guys right in front, and they didn't look friendly at all. And I thought probably a good thing that Paul's not doing this, wimpy ballad, for my birthday. So, but about a little ways into the show, I was back at the soundboard with our sound guy, and all of a sudden I heard the chords of Paul strumming the chords of You're Getting Married, and I just got shivers. I ran up to the stage, staying out of his line of sight. But I just had to get up close to watch this thing go down, and little by little he melted the hearts of these punk rockers right in front.
Fucking did.
And it was really something. And I don't want to give away the punchline because he says something at the end of the song. If you get a chance to pick it up, we did a 10-inch version. I guess we'll show you this in a minute. But it's a 10-inch that you get if you order the record directly from Rhino. Anyway, it's a 6-song segment from this Trenton, New Jersey show.
It's fantastic. It's a fantastic little 6-song set. It's
amazing version
dynamite.
of 20th Century Boy, amazing Color Me Impressed, Heyday. It's really
kind of like country-ish version of Heyday.
That's
really
right.
Good.
Heyday of Billy, they would call that. But anyway, that's a really exciting part of it too. And I was talking with a friend of ours from Seattle, Kevin Cole, Minneapolis guy who's a DJ up in Seattle, and he did show presenting all this new material on Sunday, and he said of all the things he played, I don't know however many songs he played over the course of Sunday afternoon, but he said the one single track that got the most response was "You're Getting Married," and
Oh, no shit.
he said the phones were just lighting up. And,
Oh, dude, that's so sick.
It's a real moving performance, and Paul kind of contours the lyrics, changes the words a little bit to sing to these bruisers in front of the stage, and it was really one of my favorite Replacements moments ever.
Yeah, that sounds totally magical. Okay, so we are 41 years after the
It's the 41st anniversary.
41st anniversary. You know, it wouldn't be Replacements if we didn't celebrate a 41st anniversary. What's your two favorite songs from Let It Be?
Oh, well, I would probably have to say I Will Dare and Unsatisfied.
I'm in complete agreement with Peter. I've never asked him this question before.
Track one, side one,
track one, side
and track one, side two.
That's fantastic. Awesome. Well, I'm going to open it up for like a couple of questions from the audience. If y'all are interested, do y'all want to ask a question of either myself or Peter or both of us?
Back here.
Okay, back here. Yes?
I want to ask Peter, I know that considering that the Replacements are very important for the Minneapolis and St. Paul music scenes, how come, I don't know if you had any direct hand in this, but do you know why Twin Tone never wanted to sign Husker Du?
Oh, well, I turned them down. They'd given me a tape of Statues and Amusement, which I think became their first single.
7-inch. That was a 7-inch, wasn't it?
That was their first single, yeah. And it's an interesting question because all of the guys were great friends. Greg didn't hang around the scene too much. He was a little kind of a loner, but Bob and Grant were always around. Bob was always at my apartment, hanging out and stuff. But I love punk rock, but I wasn't a big hardcore fan, and I think they had a lot of hardcore in them, and that kind of just didn't appeal to me. But the real reason I think that we didn't sign them was because Charlie Hallman was our third partner. He had been the original Seed Money. He was a little bit older than Paul Stark and I didn't think he'd get Husker Du at all, and I thought I'd make him feel very old and out of the picture. And I kind of said no to Husker Du because I didn't want to hurt Charlie's feelings.
Awesome. Well, here's some quasi-breaking news. We're potentially gonna do some shit with Husker Du for the Warner catalog.
That's great. Well, they made a lot of great records for Warner.
If we can all get aligned, it might happen.
The Replacements got signed to Sire, and then boom, Husker Du gets signed to Warner
isn't
Brothers.
that wild?
It was cool.
Yeah.
And they got and Husker Du got signed by Karen Berg, I think one of the great A&R people of all time.
Karen,
Yeah.
Very, very
Great,
very forward thinking.
and a great mentor of mine.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Any other questions? You have a captive audience up on stage of 2 people. Yes.
Can you talk about the Cubby Bear tape? How'd you find that? Was that something, Peter, that you had stashed away, or?
It's funny that I've got hundreds of cassettes of Replacement stuff from all over the place, and I did not have that show. And I think we only did Cubby Bear was like one of those clubs that was it was a little smaller. It was we played a lot of dive bars in Chicago, and then we got to kind of the nice Cubby Bear, but then the band kind of was getting popular quick, and we ended up graduating to the Cabaret Metro, which I think is, if you've ever been there, another one of the best rock clubs in America, still going strong. Anyway, I did not have that performance, and I think they only played Cubby Bear 3 different times, and this one is from August of 1984. And oddly enough, about 2.5 years ago, Tommy Stinson was on a solo tour, and he was playing in South Carolina. And a guy came up to him afterwards and handed him a CDR and said, "Hey, this is a show that a friend of mine recorded of you guys in Chicago back in '84." And Tommy doesn't listen to him old Replacement stuff, but he stuffed it in his suitcase and called me up when he got home from the trip and said, "Hey, I got this thing. Do you want to have take it for safekeeping?" I said, "Absolutely." So he sent it out, And I listened to it and I was just knocked out, again, as I said, by the song selection and the performance, not so much the sound, because again, you can tell it was an audience recording.
But even for an audience recording, it's pretty good.
I agree.
It's very good. It's
I
very,
agree.
very good. We put out worse.
Right. So anyway, when we were talking about what kind of live, element we could add to this, release, I played this for Jason, and he loved it like I loved it. So that's really where it came from. It was a guy named, I think his name is Devin Miller, was the one who gave it to Tommy, and he couldn't remember the person's name who had given it to him, who had originally recorded it. And then long after I first got this tape, and he had given, on the CDR, he'd given Tommy, his phone number was on there, so I called him up, and he didn't remember the name when I first talked to him. And then he called me back and he said, I think it was a guy named Eric Ismond. And so I just called, I just went on the internet and looked for Eric Ismond in Chicago, and I found him. He worked at a newspaper, a magazine stand newspaper place in Chicago, Chicago News or something like that, in Evanston, I think. And so I called one day and they said he wasn't working, and I said, okay, I'll call back. They said he was working the next day, between this hour and that hour. And I called up and I said, is Eric Ismond there? He said, yes, this is he. And I said, identified myself and told him that I had this recording. And I said, do you think it was yours? And he said, I don't remember doing it, but it might have been mine. And then when in our communication, he went back to his archive and found that it was in fact something that he had recorded. And so we ended up slipping him a few bucks and asking him if it was all right for us to put it on the box set. And he said absolutely.
Whenever Peter hit me up, and because everything's kind of got to be very legally as tight as possible. Before we issue something, Peter hit me up and he was like, "You won't believe the wonder that is Google in finding this person."
Yeah.
So it was, it was a nice bookend on the work that had taken 2 years to get done.
And of course, he didn't. The band was under contract to a record label at the time, so he had no rights to the performance. He just had the tape, but he was kind enough to get us his permission to use it. So.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes.
Sorry, Peter. How many questions are you willing to let me ask you?
Many as you want.
Well, I guess the first one. Do you have a favorite Bob story that you'd be willing to share?
Oh my God. A little off color, but we were driving. The Replacements weren't really big on doing anything very touristy, but I remembered we were driving nearby Niagara Falls one time, and I just said, "Oh, come on, you guys, we got to stop. I mean, we got to." And so we pulled over, and everybody was kind of looking at the falls, and whatever. And then we couldn't find Bob. And whenever you couldn't find Bob, you either looked for the nearest railroad tracks because he was obsessed with trains. No railroad tracks there, and then if not a railroad track, you look for a phone booth because he was probably calling home to talk to his girlfriend. And there he was in a phone booth, and he was in the phone booth, and he was drinking a beer, smoking a joint, and taking a leak in the phone booth, all at the same time. I thought, wait, how many hands does this guy have? How do you really do that? There's some talent there.
Yeah, there's a lot of talent.
So that's a hilarious Bob story to me.
Do you have another
Yeah,
question?
I do.
One more.
Yeah. So Chris is always seen as the most reserved and quiet member of the band, at least from what I've read. But I heard he has an alter ego called Pappy the Clown.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, what was your reaction when you first saw that, and what did that awaken?
He was there was a Jekyll Hyde thing, and he didn't drink that much very often, but Pappy the Clown came out, periodically, and it was, I don't know what to say. It was usually nothing harmful and nothing mean. He was a happy drunk, but he would. It was funny as it was actually one of the funniest parts of touring with those guys was when he'd had a few too many.
And also, Chris has been super supportive of this release. It's we're gonna go a little inside baseball on this, but it's like, it's the band dynamics being what they are. Whenever band members want to lean in it's a really special thing. And Tommy and Chris leaning in on this deluxe edition has been a real magical thing. I
Yeah,
will
Chris
say.
hadn't talked to the press for a long time, and Paul just has decided he doesn't want to do it anymore, and he's kind of not doing music even, so he's pretty much retired. But Chris actually said to me, he said, I see the, and it was sweet, got me a little choked up when he said it. He said, I see the love that you guys put into this and how nicely they turn out. And he said, I just thought, God damn it, I want to lend a hand. So he's actually doing interviews for this record. He did an interview for the Washington Post on Sunday.
He sure did.
So they're going to do because of that. And Tommy's talking to him. Tommy talked to him yesterday. So
Yeah.
I think it'll end up being a nice feature for the Post.
Yeah, it should be good. All right, last call for any questions so that we can have some time to spin some of the material from this great deluxe edition. I'm gonna go once. I'm gonna go twice. 3 times? No more questions? Okay. Peter, legitimately, not just for the work on this, but just for your work and as a friend, thank you.
Thank you. Right back at you.
All right. We're going to spin side 1 of the rarities set, which starts with a frighteningly good alternate version of Gary's Got a Boner. And then we're going to roll into one of the sides of the City Garden show. And then if we have time, because we have to be out of here by 8:30-ish, I'll try to squeeze in some more. So everyone take a seat, grab a beer, grab a non-alcoholic beer, whatever, and just sit back and relax and enjoy portions of Let It Be Deluxe Edition by The Replacements. All right.